in the office. Tune in now and listen live.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Guys, well, it's that time where we head across into another edition of the program Healthy Relationships. I've got with me Petreece Cuffie. Petreece, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Tiffany, and good afternoon to all our viewers, all our listeners. Really happy to be here again and continuing with this series on co-parenting after separation. And could be separation that, we were in a relationship, the relationship we're broken up, or even after divorce, we were married, we had children. All right. And today I'm looking at the games that parents play. But even before I go into that, and I put in games that parents play, and sometimes it's not intentional. And before I go into that, just want to share a little bit more on conflict, because a lot of times those games have to do with the fact that we're experiencing conflict and unable to communicate. So, as I would have shared in the first program, co-parenting can refer to how married couples work together and parenting children. But most of the times when we use the word co-parenting, we're talking about persons who may have never been married, and they have a child or children together, and they live separately, and they have to parent those children. So they were in a relationship, had children. We're talking about persons who were married and are either separated or now divorced, and they have children that they have to parent. And that in co-parenting really stands for cooperative parenting. And I got a lot of my information from two sources because, of course, this is not something I have done personally, but I've been helping people do this throughout the years, and I think it's best for us to get some of the best information. I know as you're listening, a lot of this but I think it's always important to remind people of what is healthy and also what is at stake. So Dr. Catherine K. Berkeley, in her paper entitled Co-Parenting After Divorce, Opportunities and Challenges, states, supportive co-parenting within divorced families is characterized by the following. A, acting together as the child's team. B, sharing direct child care. C, appropriately managing conflict about the child. And D, feeling supported in the process of parenting. So successful co-parenting requires negotiation, respect, and support. Effective co-parenting support one another's actions and decisions, make and stick to agreements about how to raise their children, and refrain from undermining each other. So this is what effective co-parenting should look like. And as I would have shared at the end of the first program in this series, sometimes we are parenting with persons who are on the narcissistic spectrum or who show a lot of narcissistic qualities. And with parenting like that, you want to look at something called parallel parenting. So this is something I would want listeners and viewers, if this applies to you, to research that. All right. And know that can be a very difficult and frustrating thing, but it's something, the more information we have, the better it is for us. So evidence suggests that supportive co-parenting is linked with a variety of indicators of children's post-divorce or post-separation adjustment, including children's pro-social behavior. So the social behavior is what is considered healthy. It is what is considered, an indication of a child that is well adjusted, and also their peer competence. So they operate well with their peers because there is supportive co-parenting. So supportive co-parenting has also been found to predict more frequent father-child contact, which in turn has a strong positive impact on children's development. And we know where there is co-parenting, where there's less conflict, because many men, it is very difficult for them to deal with a lot of quarreling, a lot of raised voices, a lot of animosity, right? They tend to back away from that. And we find where there is supportive co-parenting, the studies have found that you have much more father-child contact, and we know this has a very strong impact on children's development. It's very important in co-parenting that we want both parents involved. We did not get this child, not the father alone or not the mother alone. Both two people came together for this child to be brought into this world by God's grace, right? While post-divorce parental cooperation, collaboration are powerful, positive forces in child's adjustment, negative co-parenting behaviors have been shown to be harmful to a child's development. And we know that. We know that. Specifically, children who are exposed to high levels of ongoing parental conflict are at a higher risk for various behavioral and emotional problems, as well as more problematic parent-child relationships. Another negative co-parenting dynamic is undermining, and we know what that could look like, which is characterized by behaviors such as undercutting, overriding, hostility, criticism, competition, withdrawal. Undermining behaviors also occur when a parent makes a negative comment or gesture about the other parent in front of the child. So, things like, mocking, you're rolling your eyes, you're sighing, right? Those things like, oh my gosh, why is she so sick then? Oh my gosh, why is he here, right? High levels of undermining in co-parenting relationships are associated with children experiencing externalizing behaviors. That's like acting out behaviors. So they act out in different ways, whether towards their peers, whether towards themselves, right? Or internalizing behaviors, things like anxiety and depression, as well as children feeling as if they are caught in the middle between their parents. So today I am looking at the games that parents play, and a lot of times it is in relation to conflict, how they deal with different issues that they have to navigate as co-parents. And I'm sharing from Making Plans, right? A guide to parenting arrangements after separation or divorce. And this is a guidebook that comes from the government of Canada. So of course, as my grandmother would say, I'm taking out the meat and I'm leaving the bones, right? And it has some really, really good information in it that I want to share with you. And it says one of the most important things you can do for your children is to protect them from conflict between you and the other parent. Research clearly shows that low conflict between parents is critical to the child's well-being after a separation, a breakup, or divorce. Conflict creates a climate of tension that can be harmful to children. This is true even if there's no physical or emotional abuse. So there's no physical, there's no emotional abuse, but there's just so much conflict, and that is harmful. This means that you and the other parent should treat each other with respect in front of your child or children. Very critical. Once you're talking about, even if the parent is absent or the present, it has to do with the parent. You're speaking parent with respect. If conflict continues for a long time, it can cause stress, fear, and emotional and behavioral problems in children. For example, studies have shown that conflict between parents can affect children's physical, psychological, and emotional health, children's social interactions with you, other family members, their friends, and this is important, even later in life with their own spouses and their own children. And I have seen, this is me in my work, where persons had parents who were in a lot of conflict, even post the breakdown of the relationship, and they don't deal with conflict well at all. So instead of saying how they truly feel about things in a marriage, instead of saying they like this or they don't like that, they literally say nothing for years, and a spouse believes everything is okay, or things are just not being addressed simply because they don't want to they believe that any conflict would turn into a big argument or some quarreling, and they really, really, really hate that. It makes them very, very uncomfortable. So we have to know that these things are not just impacting children in the short term, but it can also impact them in the long term, which of course we can understand. And it can also affect how children do in school, in their academics, right? Continuing conflict between their parents also sets a bad example for children. It does not show them how to solve disagreements in a healthy way. And here are a few things to keep in mind to protect your children from conflict. What do we need to do? And I'm sure, listeners, you know this, but it's a reminder. And also we can tap in. If we are followers of Jesus, we can tap into God's grace to not have these sorts of conversations and disagreements in front of our children. So what we want to be not doing, don't argue in front of your children. Don't argue where your children can hear you. Don't ask your children to carry messages between you and the other parent. Don't try to punish the other parent by denying them time with the children, denying the extended family time with the children, or not paying child maintenance. Don't ask your children to take your side against the other parent. Don't leave legal papers where your children can see them. Don't tell your children about your problems with the other parent or their legal advisor or their lawyer. Don't use your children for emotional support. Don't punish your children for misbehavior by keeping them from seeing or talking to the other parent. Don't discourage your child's interest in both parents and extended family members. Don't speak negatively about the other parent to the children or where they can overhear. And this one is important. Don't allow anyone else, such as friends, your parents, and relatives, or new partners, to do this either. For example, if you and the other parent disagree about an issue such as the children's vacation schedule, don't talk about it in front of the children or the child. Instead, plan a time for you that you can have, whether it's a telephone conversation or we agree to communicate via email or via text, right, to deal with the matter, not in front of the child or the children. And if you're still not able to resolve it, right, you could ask for help, a counselor, a mediator, some older person, one of your religious leaders, even if you want a lawyer. But don't do these things, have these conversations in front of children. So we're looking at Nick, and this is Nick in the middle. Nick's stomach churned as he listened to his parents' voices rising. Things were heating up, and he knew that another full-blown argument was just minutes away. He closed his bedroom door and turned up the music. For as long as he could remember, his parents have been arguing. They had argued before the divorce. They continued after the divorce. They argued about little things like Nick's bedtime. They argued about big things like who would pay child maintenance. The worst part was that they were constantly arguing in front of Nick. They argued on the front porch when he was picked up. They argued over the phone when he was trying to sleep. Once they had even argued at his school play. Nick had been embarrassed in front of other children, their parents, and his teachers. It had taken him a long time to forgive his parents for that, but it didn't change anything. They just kept on arguing. Nick was convinced that he was the reason that they argued. After all, they were always arguing over him, where he should stay that night, who should pay for his piano lessons, and who would drive him to school. What else could it be? He could not focus at school and lost interest in playing the piano. He did not invite friends over because he was afraid that they would hear his parents screaming at each other. So, these days, he spent most of his time in his room alone. Nick's favorite teacher, Mr. Adamson, noticed that he seemed unhappy and that his grades were dropping. One day, he asked Nick if there was anything he wanted to talk about. Nick was so glad to have someone other than his parents to talk to that before he knew it, he had told Mr. Adamson all about his parents' arguments and how they made him feel. With Nick's permission, Mr. Adamson called for Nick's parents. He explained to them how Nick was feeling, responsible for their arguments, and how it was affecting him. It was hard for Nick's parents to hear what their behavior was doing to him, but they began to see that it needed to be changed because at the end of the day, most parents love their children, right? Most parents love their children. So, of course, this is hard to hear. Later that week, his dad decided to call the family counselor his doctor had recommended when he and Nick's mom had separated. At first, Nick's dad went alone, but after a couple of sessions, the counselor encouraged him to ask Nick's mom to join them. Nick's mom was afraid the counseling session would turn into another argument, but she decided to give it a try for Nick's sake. Although it was not easy, they met with the counselor a few times and came up with a way to keep Nick out of their conflict. They both agreed that no matter how angry they felt with each other, they loved Nick more and they needed to focus on him. They decided that if there was a problem, they would communicate through emails or meet with the counselor again to talk it through. After those meetings with the counselor, Nick's parents sat down with him and explained that he was not responsible for their divorce. They apologized for arguing in front of him and told him that they both thought it might be a good idea for him to speak to a counselor about how he was feeling. Nick felt relieved that he would not have to listen to the arguing anymore. He was sure that things would get better. And this is very important. A lot of times when children see, especially young children, see conflict in a marriage, and especially parents arguing over them, they really feel like they're the ones who are responsible for the breakdown in the relationship, for the breakdown in the marriage, for the divorce, right? And really start to internalize a lot of negative messages about themselves. So it's very important, if this is what is happening, that it stops or that you seek help to get it to stop. So games that parents sometimes play. Some parents put their children in the middle of their conflict without realizing it. You may have heard stories about separating parents who use their children against each other. Children already have to deal with a lot of changes and emotions. They do not need to be put in the middle of their parents' conflicts, even if their parents don't always mean to do it. So I understand, even as you list the parents, that not all the time this is intentional. We're hurting so much, but you need to get your own help to deal with your hurt. At the end of the day, co-parenting is all about the child. It's not about your past relationship. Deal with those issues somewhere else. Deal with your pain somewhere else, right? So a lot of times it's not intentional. It's hurting persons, hurting another person, right? Parents who act in this way are usually angry or feel they cannot communicate with the other parent. No matter why they do it, it can harm their parents. You do not want your children to be in the middle of your conflict. So here are some examples of the kinds of behaviors you should avoid. So these are the games parents play. And I don't mean games as this is something intentional or it is something funny. That's not what I'm saying. And the first one is the child as the prize. The child as the prize. When parents are in conflict, one of them may try to win by getting a child on their side. The prize is getting the child to believe that they are the right one, right? They are right, and that the other parent is wrong. One of them might tell the child too much about the cause of the divorce or the breakup. Or one parent might say negative things about the other parent. So you're painting the other parent in a bad light to get the child, on their side. The child is the prize. The child wants me more, right? Nobody wins if children are hurt. Over time, children may become angry with the parent who won at first. Because I'll tell you this, when children get older and understand more about what happened, they may feel that they have been used because children get older. And eventually we can get more of the story. So it is nobody wins if children are being hurt. So using children as the prize. So I know my child is for me. No, your child needs to be able to feel comfortable about having as healthy as possible relationship with both parents. And then you have the child as the bargaining chip. The child as the bargaining chip. Sometimes one parent might feel threatened, sometimes one parent might threaten the other parent to get them to behave the way they want. So the child becomes the bargaining chip. If you don't pay your child support, I won't let you see the children. If you don't tell me how you're using the money I give you, I'll stop paying child support. If you don't stop seeing your new partner, I won't let you see the children as often. When parents act this way, they are probably focusing on their relationship with each other and not on their children. So we're using the children now. So I would withhold or I would minimize something so I can somehow make you pay in some way, using the children as bargaining chips. The next one is the child as the messenger. The child as the messenger. So sometimes parents might not speak to each other directly. Instead, they might send messages with their children. Tell your father that when you are at his place, he needs to get your homework done. Tell her mother that her lawyer better stop calling me. Tell your mother that I need the clothes back that I brought for you. This puts the children in the middle of the conflict. It can make them feel stressed and anxious. Instead, you need to communicate directly with the other parent about parenting issues. Please do not make your children a go-between. And just sharing Monica's story. And this is not about anybody per se, all right? So it is a made-up story, but it happens. So Monica, the messenger, Anika and Ramesh refused to talk to each other. So when Anika had a message for Ramesh, she would give the message to their 12-year-old daughter, Monica. Tell your father he needs to pay for half of your school trip. Ramesh did the same thing. Tell your mother not to let you stay up late on weeknights. Sometimes things became very complicated. If your father does not want to pick you up on Fridays, then he needs to start driving you to class every Tuesday and Wednesday. Oh my God. Right? Monica became confused and frustrated. Sometimes her mom or dad would get mad when she passed on the message. She hated doing it. She felt like her parents were getting angry with her. She was too young to be responsible for any of this. What did she know about money and schedules? What if she forgot something important? One day, when Anika asked Monica to tell her father something, Monica shouted, "Why don't you just tell Dad yourself? You're the adult." Anika was shocked. She thought Monica was handling things okay. Maybe she was wrong. It took her all day to work herself up to it, but Anika sent Ramesh an email that night. She explained what had happened and suggested that they needed to talk to each other directly rather than through Monica. When Ramesh received Anika's email, he felt terrible. He realized that they had been putting their own feelings ahead of their daughters. Ramesh agreed that they needed to put Monica's best interest first, even if communicating directly was difficult. They scheduled a telephone conversation every 2 weeks where they would talk about Monica and agreed to communicate by email in between as necessary. Communication is still tough for them, but it should not be tough on Monica. And this is just so important. And then we have the child as the spy, right? So we can have the child as the bargaining chip, the child, as the prize, the child as the messenger. We can also have the child as the spy. Sometimes one parent may ask a child a lot of questions about the other parent. Does your mother have a boyfriend? Does he stay over at night? Did your dad get a new car? And the same thing, does your dad have a new girlfriend? Has your mom found a job yet? Right? How long do you all stay by your grandparents? This type of questioning puts children in a difficult position. They don't want to feel like they are telling on their parents. And I suppose just listen to this, you can see how torn a child would feel, because children want to please both parents, and children want to be loved and accepted by both parents. These questions can also confuse children. They can make children wonder if the parent is actually doing something wrong. Besides, the information that parents get this way is often unreliable because children are just talking based on what they're seeing and making an evaluation on what they're seeing, and that evaluation does not have to be correct. It is normal to be curious about your former partner, but you need to make sure you don't make your children feel like they are telling on the other parent. So it's very normal to be curious. And sometimes talk to your adult friends. Let them tell you what they see and what they know if you think you need to know. But really, what you need to know is that to ensure that your children are safe with either parent and that your children are comfortable with either parent. And then we can also have that spy trap. So Patrick, he felt awkward telling his dad the truth. Well, does your mom have a new boyfriend or what? I just want to know, asked Patrick's father. Patrick's dad asks about his mom a lot. He would ask whether she was buying new furniture with his money, if she stayed out late at night, and what kinds of friends came to the home. He asked a lot of questions, even one Patrick didn't know how to answer. So he didn't even have the answers to, and he's asking Patrick this. So imagine how a child, you want to please your parent, you want to say something, but you don't know. Patrick didn't want to say anything, but this time, because his mom had asked him not to, he didn't want to break his promise that he had made to his mother, but he didn't want to lie to his dad. So sometimes we know parents can't tell children, don't tell your parent about this, right? Because they have a sense of what is going on. You know the person you're in a relationship with. I don't want them to know about this. So there's the child now. Oh my gosh, I made a promise to mom. But then here's daddy asking me about this. What do I do? So that whole spy trap, the child feels like they're in this space just spying on their parents. So he didn't want to break the promise he had made to his mother, but he didn't want to lie to his dad. Besides, his parents were divorced. So why was his dad asking? Patrick loved his dad, but he felt stuck in the middle. Why couldn't his dad see how this was affecting him? So as parents, it's important, and I'll continue on this because I don't want to start and not finish. I would continue on this in the next program, but it's very, very important that we protect our children from these things. There are games we play, and when I say games, again, I don't mean it is frivolous. I don't mean that necessarily that we're doing it on purpose. Sometimes we are hurting so much that we don't realize what we are doing to our children. So you know you have been in a terrible breakup. All divorces are painful, a bad separation. Please take some time to deal with your pain. Talk to someone, talk to a counselor, journal, pray. But one of the things you want to do is not have your children in the middle of that. So, some of the things you don't want to be doing, again, don't argue in front of your children. Don't argue where your children can hear you. Don't ask your children to carry messages between you and the other parent. Don't try to punish the other parent by denying them time with the children, denying their extended family time with the children. So they have grannies, they have grandpas, right, that would like to see the children, not paying that child maintenance. Don't ask your children to take your side against the other parent. Don't leave legal documents, legal papers where your children can see them. Don't tell your children about your problems with the other parent or problems with the other parent's lawyers. Don't use your children for emotional support. Don't punish your children for misbehavior by doing what? Keeping them from seeing or talking to the other parent. That should never be a consequence for misbehavior. That must not be. Don't discourage your children's interest in both parents and extended family members. So your children, they want to know the auntie, they want to know the uncle, they want to see granny, grandpa, these different things. They're having a family get together by the, the other parents, relatives. Don't not allow them to go to these things. The more loving support that children have from relatives, from family, is the more resilient and the healthier emotionally, psychologically the children would be. All right? And don't speak negatively about the other parent to the children where they can overhear. Right? Don't allow anyone else, friends, your parents, so their grandparents, relatives, or even new partners, new persons you're in relationship with, don't let them do it either. Have that conversation. You can talk, because sometimes we need spaces to be able to process all that we've been through in our relationship. So we need to be able to talk to people about it to help process. But the children should not be in earshot of those conversations or a part of this conversation, right? So for example, if you and the other parent disagree about an issue, schedule a time to deal with it. We WhatsApping, we're talking on the phone, right? We emailing, because a lot of times we don't have to meet in person to have these discussions, right? And if you're still not able to resolve the dispute, please ask for help. Go to a counselor, a mediator, some older person that both of you all can agree on, to trust somebody who has been this way before. So there are other people who have had to deal with this and you felt that they dealt with it in a healthy way. Seek out, get help. Your religious community, right? Your church leaders, church elders, speak to them, right? You want to be able, especially if it's a very important issue that we need to resolve with respect to our children, you want to make sure that we're on the same page, get help. So Tiffany, I'm closing off here today with this. So coming on in terms of next Monday to continue dealing with this. I didn't start off thinking I'll be dealing with all of this, but as I continue to do my research and I was thinking about, as I deal with clients, what I want viewers, listeners to hear, I felt I needed to do some more, which is why it's taking this long. So I said it's a 3-part series. It may be 4, right? But just really wanting our listeners and viewers to get as much information as possible on this issue.
Well, I'm certain they are happy with this type of information you are sharing with us today, Petreece. So, as per usual, we're going to have the phone lines open if anyone would like to call in and maybe ask a question, leave a comment. Feel free to do so. We've got counselor and trainer Petreece Cuffie on with us today for Co-Parenting Part 2. It's a new series, guys. Make sure you lock on. Maybe if you missed last week's program, you can always check it back on FBN TV or Isaac the Promise. All right, so at this time, the phone lines are open, 622-1981, 628-1981. In the meantime, I'll also check in on the Facebook just to see if we have any comments there as well. You can also send us a WhatsApp at 275-1981. All right, so the phone
And
lines
also,
are open. Go ahead, Petreece.
also Tiffany, persons can, if they're calling in, to share what they did that really helped in making this transition in terms of co-parenting. Because it really can be difficult. It can be difficult, but eventually once people stick to this is how we're going to communicate, this is what we're going to do, it gets easier with time. But again, there are persons who are co-parenting with persons who exhibit narcissistic behavior. So a lot of manipulation, gaslighting. It doesn't seem to really be about the child. It's really about the child being like a pawn in them looking good these co-parenting with persons like that can be very, very challenging, and therefore you really can't do co-parenting. It really becomes about parallel parenting, where they once the child is safe with the parent, they have their schedule for the child when they're there, and you have your schedule for the child when they're with you. So it's something that listeners need to research, because I can't sit here and say if somebody is showing narcissistic tendencies or not, of course. Yeah.
All right, sure. Thank you. Seeing person's commenting on the Facebook. All right, Sharon is saying good afternoon. Thanks for your information. We've got Indira locked on, Otis locked on as well. 622-1981, 628-1981 if you wish to call in to share, make a comment, whatever you'd like to. If you maybe want to ask Petreece a question, feel free to do so. In the meantime, I will also give you a number for Petreece. It's a WhatsApp message number only. All right, and that number is 329-7383. 329-7383.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so no
Get
callers.
messages on WhatsApp, which I would respond to on my WhatsApp.
Excellent. All right, yes. 622-1981, 628-1981. We've got 2 minutes left on the clock. If you guys would like to chime in at this time, speak with Petreece, or 275-1981. Feel free to do so in the last 1 minute, I should say. 1 minute. In the meantime, Petreece, if you have any closing remarks other than what you just shared, feel free while we wait.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is the breakdown of any relationship is very painful. And I think it's important for a person to process that pain in a healthy way. I have seen people reach to the point of feeling like they're going to die. And in doing that, sometimes like holding on to the children, like the children are their savior, and sharing certain things with the children that they shouldn't in that very vulnerable and painful time. So again, parenting is hard in itself. Even as married couples, parenting is hard, it's difficult. But imagine parenting where we in different spaces, and we've also had a history, and we had a history where there's pain. So we could see how that could be difficult. So I'm just saying to even persons listening, and you are in pain because the relationship has broken down for whatever reasons, please deal with your pain in a healthy way. Don't look to your children to try to soothe that pain. And don't look to your children to try to soothe that pain. Deal with your pain in a healthy way. Talk to someone, get counseling, right? Deal with that pain in a healthy way, because you don't want it to impact you in terms of you parenting your children.
All right, Petreece. Well, it's 1 p.m., no calls. So at this time, we're going to shut things down. Petreece, thank you so very much once again for another informative program and topic.
You're welcome.
All right, until we meet again, you have a blessed and beautiful day today. And
thank you. God bless.
God bless you. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye-bye. Well, guys, that's it there for the program Healthy Relationships. We're going to step across into another hour. Keep it locked right here on the 981.
Hi, I'm Petreece Cuffie, counselor and trainer, and one of my deepest desires is to see people experience the fulfillment and growth that comes through healthy relationships. We're wired for relationships, so tune in and join with me as I explore and discuss tools for healthy relationships every Monday, 12:15 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM.
Isaac 98.1 FM. Listen to us at home, in your cars, on your way to work, or in the office.